You weren't surprised. The SEC had been eyeing this up.
Yeah, I don't think this is any surprise at all to people who have been paying attention. You know, for literally decades, 70 to 80 years, we've had securities laws that have developed both for the protection of consumers and investors, but also for companies. And if you look at how this has unfolded, the very name itself, an initial coin offering, or an ICO, sounds an awful lot like an IPO. And I have been fond of saying if it walks like a duck, it talks like a duck. Well, it probably is a duck. And in fact, now we know the SEC is going to regulate it like it's a duck. So I don't think there's any big surprise. I think in some ways very good for the industry.
Good for the industry. What does it mean if you're in the US, you were looking at doing a token offering, an initial coin offering? What does it mean in terms of the new information you're going to have to give your investor base, and what that means for the investors eyeing them up?
Well, I think what it means is you need to have the same kind of thoughtful process that goes through any securities offering. And I think what was happening, and you had over $1 billion raised through these initial coin offerings in Q2. And I think what you're going to see happen now is that will slow because there will be some discipline included in that process, disclosures, transparency, and really making sure the investors that are buying these tokens know what they're buying and know what they should expect going forward. I think that was really operating in a really gray area for a while, and the SEC has come out, and I think again is really provide clarity around that, which I think will be good for the industry at large, and separating really what may in fact have been even at the edge fraud to better use cases. Ultimately, I think digital assets have a very valuable role to play. XRP, which is Ripple's digital asset, I think the more utility you can derive from that, the more use case you can derive, the more valuable they will be. In some of these token offerings, that was really unclear.
Will it drive it offshore? Because, I mean, I'm looking at the Isle of Man near here in the United Kingdom. It's been known as Bitcoin Island. Could you just do offshore offerings?
Sure, and people have certainly talked about how you can just avoid U.S. regulation. At the end of the day, though, I think governments around the world are going to recognize, governments around the world have protections for investors, they have protections for companies and how securities are offered. And so I think there may be exceptions and opportunities to go offshore and focus on non-U.S. or non-British or non-European investors. But I think that's a short-sighted opportunity. Ultimately, we think that, and certainly Ripple has been very focused on, how do we work with regulators? How do we work with governments and banks to take advantage of an incredibly new, interesting asset class and in just a technology that can accelerate the engine of commerce globally?